What if the rise of China is not simply a story about economics or military power? What if it is also a story about history, patience, strategy, and a completely different way of seeing the world? In his book On China, Henry Kissinger tries to answer exactly that question and to explain why understanding China's past is essential to understanding its future. Kissinger was a former U.S. Secretary of State and one of the most important American diplomats of the 20th century. In On China, published in 2011, he combines historical analysis with his own experience dealing with Chinese leaders. The book explores China's imperial past, Mao Zedong's revolution, the opening between China and the United States. Perhaps the biggest lesson of On China is that diplomacy is not only about strength, it is also about understanding how the other side sees the world. Kissinger's interpretation suggests that countries can cooperate even when they have major disagreements, if they understand each other's interests and find areas where those interests overlap. One of the book's central ideas is that China often sees international relations through the lens of its long history. Kissinger argues that China's strategic thinking was shaped by centuries of civilization and by its historical position in East Asia. This is different from the Western tradition of thinking about international politics mainly through alliances, military balance, and competition between states. Another important idea is patience. Kissinger describes Chinese strategy as often focused on long-term objectives rather than immediate victories. Instead of asking, "How do we win today?" the approach can be closer to asking, "How do we shape the situation over time?" This perspective becomes especially interesting when Kissinger discusses Mao Zedong and the United States. For decades, China and America were deeply opposed, but in the early 1970s, the relationship changed dramatically. Kissinger played a major role in the secret diplomacy that helped prepare President Richard Nixon's historic visit to China in 1972. Nixon's meeting with Mao did not erase the differences between the two countries. Instead, it created a new strategic relationship based partly on their shared concern about the Soviet Union. Later, under Deng Xiaoping, China began major economic reforms and opened itself more to the global economy. The result was a transformation that eventually helped China become one of the world's most powerful economies. For Kissinger, this history matters because China's rise cannot be understood simply by looking at what China is doing today. You also have to understand how Chinese leaders think about history, power, and time.